He could always tell the time by the sounds. 3 turns of the iron key. The lazy scrape of rusty hinges. Heavy boots, uneven, dragging down the corridor, a rhythm so familiar it might as well have been his own heartbeat. Every morning at exactly 5:30, Marcel Lefevre woke up not because he wanted to, but because the prison reminded him, "You are still here, you are still theirs." November 12, 1943. Day 284 in Frayne's prison. He felt each day like a notch carved into bone. He sat up on the narrow cot. His joints ached, souvenirs from nights under Gestapo fists in the basements of Avenue Foch. He winced, swung his feet onto the cold concrete floor, and listened. That limp, it had to be Klaus. The German with the twisted leg from the Eastern Front. Klaus always started at the far end, giving Marcel exactly 2 minutes before the peephole snapped open and an eye like a wolf's would stare back at him. Marcel slipped into the faded striped uniform that had once been bright blue, long ago, before too many washings, too much sweat and blood. He straightened his back against the damp wall. 3 steps to the wall. 2 steps to the iron door. His entire universe. Once, he'd been an engineer. Paris sewer master, king of the hidden rivers beneath the city that pretended to be clean above. He'd been a husband, a father, a stubborn fool in the resistance. And now, prisoner number 2473. Property of the Reich. Scheduled for death by bullet. A click. Metal squealed. A slice of Klaus's pale face in the opening. Prisoner 2473. The voice rasped through a thick German accent. Back to wall. Marcel obeyed. Eyes down. Never meet their eyes. That little rule saved teeth. Klaus paused. The hall smelled of wet stone and old fear. He spoke lower, almost human. Today your day, Frenchman. 3 days, Drancy. Then, East. Drancy. Transit camp. The East, they all knew what that meant. Not a bullet. Not quick. Something slower, colder. The kind of death that didn't leave enough for the crows. When Klaus limped off, keys jangling, Marcel sat back on the cot. He stared up at the tiny window high in the wall, where winterlight tried and failed to get inside. Somewhere beyond that window, Paris. His Paris. Narrow streets, the whiff of coffee and newsprint. And her. Sophie. God, her eyes. Always laughing at him. That stupid curl falling across her forehead, which she'd blow away with a huff like an impatient child. You'll come back to us, she'd whispered the last night he'd held her. He'd believed her then. He almost didn't anymore. Almost. But today, 3 days from a cattle train to the east, Marcel felt something uncoil in his chest. Not hope, no. Hope was poison in this place. This was different. Colder. A single iron thought, sharp as a blade tucked in his ribs. You have 3 days to do the impossible. 3 days to run. He could barely taste the watery soup at breakfast. He watched the guards instead, every step, every nod, every glance. Prisoners mumbled over their bowls, eyes flicking to the door every few seconds, ready to clamp their jaws shut if a boot stepped too close. Did you hear? Pierre whispered across the table. Old teacher, bad lungs, too kind for this hell. Allies landed in Italy. Germans are sweating bullets. Marcel gave a ghost of a nod. He didn't care. Not about Italy, not today. His mind flipped through maps only he could see, blueprints inked in memory and sweat. Beneath this floor, beneath every floor, ran an older city than Paris itself. A wet, stinking city with rivers of waste. He had known it better than his own street. He still did. Pierre leaned closer, seeing that empty look. They're moving you? Drancy? Marcel nodded once. Pierre paled. That's 3 days. I need your help, Marcel murmured. And Jacques' help too, Jacques the lockpicker, the scoundrel with the careful hands who could open a door with half a smile. Jacques grinned, teeth crooked but eyes sharp. Through the sewers, Monsieur Engineer? You've lost your mind. Not lost. Hidden. Marcel's lips twitched, not a smile, more a snarl at the thought of what came otherwise. There's an emergency drain beneath the laundry. Build 37. It's not on their maps. Only on mine. Pierre and Jacques traded a look that said damn fool but also maybe. Maybe was enough. That night, Marcel lay stiff on the cot, eyes boring into the cracks above him, counting cracks instead of sheep. He recited the plan until it stuck like a prayer. Laundry. Service hatch. 40 meters of darkness to the main line. Cut through the bars. Run like the devil was real and had your name stitched in his pocket. If he failed, he would fail with his back straight, not like a sheep waiting for the bolt gun. 3 days. 1 man. 1 city beneath the city. He'd bet his life on pipes and tunnels nobody cared about. He closed his eyes, and for a heartbeat, just a heartbeat, he let himself see Sophie's face, and a tiny hand clutching hers. Claire. God, forgive him for dreaming he'd see them again. The next 2 days turned into one long shiver of secrets and stolen glances. In the filthy laundry basement, Marcel found excuses to linger by the huge, ancient washing machines. His eyes memorized every bolt, every pipe overhead, every shadow where a man might hide. He moved like a ghost through the prison, but inside he was fire, a fire that burned hotter each time he thought 3 days. Then the train. Or the drain. Pierre did his part, slipping bits of guard schedules into Marcel's hands hidden inside soiled pillowcases. Jacques worked the stolen knives against the gritty concrete of his cell floor until the edges whispered promises of freedom and blood. Even Klaus, with his limp and his dead dog eyes, never suspected the engineer he called French vermin was building a road out right under his nose. On the second night, Marcel couldn't sleep. He lay on the cot, palms sweaty on his chest, feeling the knives shaped through the thin mattress. He replayed the tunnels in his mind, entrance, collector, the first grate, then 40 meters crawling on torn knees and bitten lips. The human brain does strange things when death becomes a promise. Some men bargain with God. Some beg in the dark. Marcel did neither. He closed his eyes and pictured pipes, lengths, diameters, flow rate. The living blueprint pulsed behind his eyelids like a heartbeat. Somewhere far above, Paris slept under blackout curtains. Sophie's voice floated to him in the dark, soft as breath. You'll come back to us. He almost believed her. Almost. Dawn. The final day. He rose when the keys scraped the lock. Same song, same rhythm, but this time, the melody hummed inside him. This ends today. Breakfast, a ghost meal. He chewed bread that tasted of dust and watched Pierre 2 tables away. A single nod, all ready. In the kitchen, Jacques laced Muller the guard's soup with a laxative stolen from the infirmary. By lunch, Muller's belly would betray him, and a new boy from Dresden would stand watch at the laundry. Marcel worked in the steamy basement that afternoon, sleeves rolled, muscles screaming under the weight of soaked linen. The heat wrapped around him like a dirty blanket, masking sweat and fear alike. At exactly 5:20, right on cue, Pierre caused a crash loud enough to rattle the stones. Clean sheets tumbled, prisoners cursed, the young guard panicked and ran to help. Marcel didn't run. He vanished. Under the largest washing vat, half hidden by rust and dust, waited his doorway, a round iron maintenance hatch, forgotten by time and arrogance. The perfect secret. He knelt, heart hammering so loud it swallowed all sound. With the sharpened knife and the stolen bedspring rod, he pried the stubborn lid loose. It squealed once, a sound like a mouse being strangled, then popped free. Stale, sour air belched from the black hole. Marcel closed his eyes, swallowed fear whole, and dropped through. He fell 4 meters down a slick concrete shaft and landed hard on bent knees. The lantern was there, just where Jacques had hidden it, a battered kerosene ghost waiting to light the path to hell. The flame sputtered to life, throwing an orange halo against walls that sweated mildew and old secrets. Below Paris. Below war. Below Reich. Marcel crawled into the pipe's throat, water licking at his boots, blade warm in his hand. Ahead lay 40 meters of rust and darkness. Beyond that, freedom, or something pretending to be it. Behind him, Frayne's prison still thought it owned him. Tonight, it would learn it was wrong. The tunnel swallowed him whole. Marcel crouched low, the lantern's flame dancing shadows against slick stone. Water lapped at his ankles, icy fingers that reminded him, "You are not safe yet. You are not free yet." 40 meters. That number pounded in his skull like a drum. Half crawling, half waiting, he forced his battered body forward. His mind drifted to a simpler life. Sundays with Sophie on Montmartre, Claire begging for ice cream, the smell of fresh bread, gone now, ghosts he dragged behind him like broken chains. Then metal stopped him cold. A grate. A snarl of iron bars, their lower ends sunk forever in trickling filth. Marcel knelt, breath fogging the lantern glass. He touched the rust. He could feel it crumble like old bread under his fingertips. Good. Good. He drew the stolen knife, teeth chattering not from fear but from the water that crawled up his shins, sucking warmth from his marrow. He scraped, pried, cursed in whispers. Metal bit his palms, turned red with his blood. Each scrape echoed like a gunshot in the sewer's throat. He paused, listening. Above him, the city dreamed in German boots. Below, he was a rat gnawing at his own cage. Minutes. Maybe an hour. He didn't know. Time bled away down the drain. Finally, with a groan that sang louder than any prayer, 2 bars gave way. Just enough. Not a man-sized hole, a desperate man-sized hole. He shoved the lantern through first, then his shoulders, his hips, teeth grinding as rust bit into flesh and fabric tore. A scrap of his prison uniform fluttered loose and snagged on the jagged iron. He saw it, cursed again. It would tell them which way he'd run. No time to mourn it. He slipped through, knees scraping stone, water gurgling at his thighs now. Onward. He barely heard the alarm at first, a distant siren, muffled by tons of stone. Then louder boots, barking dogs, men shouting, "Schnell! Schnell!" They knew. Of course they knew. The old engineer laughed, a raw, broken cough swallowed by the tunnel's throat. Good. Let them come. He would show them Paris was not theirs underneath. He ducked into a narrower feeder pipe, the walls so close he felt the city's pulse in his ribs. Rats squealed and vanished into cracks as he passed, a phantom with bloodied hands and a heart still stupid enough to dream. Far behind, voices bounced off the slick walls. They were in the sewer now. He pictured Klaus cursing his name. Good. Let the Nazi limp chase shadows. Marcel hit a junction where 3 streams met. Water here surged to his waist, dragging at his legs, daring him to slip and drown like a worthless secret. He clutched the lantern tight above the current, muttering Sophie's name like a mantra. Up ahead, a faint draft tugged at his hair, freedom's breath. But more iron waited, another grate. This one newer, crueler, bolted tight. His bones sagged. But his will, never. He pressed closer, lantern trembling, eyes hunting for weakness. One bolt, shinier than the rest. A maintenance hatch? Maybe. The knife again. The bed spring rod again. Fingers so numb he barely felt them obey. Each twist of the bolt flayed a new prayer from his lips. Voices again, clearer, closer. They're coming. Marcel grinned like a wolf. Let them watch. With a final wrench, the bolt snapped. The grate swung inward like a door begging him to run. He did not thank it. He crawled through and vanished deeper into the veins of the city that, for tonight, would still claim him as its son. The grate slammed shut behind him, swallowing the faint curses of the Germans like a tomb lid. Marcel paused just long enough to catch a ragged breath, lungs burning, legs trembling from cold and fear that masqueraded as fury. He could hear them. Boots sloshing through filth. Barked orders. The echoes tricked the ear. Were they 10 meters behind him or 50? Didn't matter. He had to move, had to vanish into the veins of Paris before their dogs caught his scent. He stumbled through ankle-deep muck. Lantern flickering in his fist like a fragile promise. Each bend in the tunnel looked the same. His eyes darted to the wet walls for the iron plates with street names. His only map now. Rue de Belleville. Good. North. He was still north. If he could reach Montmartre, the cellars, Sophie's old secrets, he'd have a rat's chance in hell. He almost laughed. A rat's chance. Maybe that's all I ever needed. He found a narrow offshoot pipe, a drain for runoff in spring floods. Not on any plan the Nazis had. He ducked in, back scraping brick, water slapping his knees. The smell was worse here, rot oil, a hint of sewage so strong it stripped skin from thought. Behind him, silence. He killed the lantern, no point advertising his heartbeat. Darkness swallowed him whole. He crawled blind, one palm trailing the wall, the other clutching the knife like a lifeline. His mind flicked through memories to stay awake. Sophie's laughter. Claire's tiny hand squeezing his pinky. How stupid that he never really looked at them when he could. Always some resistance meeting, some blueprint, some goddamn hope bigger than this tunnel. Now hope was this tunnel. A splash behind him. Then another. His pulse tripped over itself. He pressed against the cold brick, eyes wide, ears straining. A faint beam of torchlight danced at the mouth of the drain. Muffled voices. A dog's bark, sharp, savage, hungry. No, not here. He sucked air through his teeth. Forced his legs to move. Forward. Always forward. The drain narrowed until he crawled on elbows and belly, knife biting into his ribs with every squirm. Ahead, a glimmer, a storm hatch, old iron, corroded hinges. Please. He shoved it. It resisted like a coffin lid. He kicked, cursed, pushed with everything that remained. Rust groaned. The hatch popped open into a concrete well of icy air. Above him, a manhole. A ladder bolted to the stone like a promise. Marcel didn't think. He climbed, scraping knees bloody on the rungs. Below, the dog snarled in the drain, blocked by the too tight crawl space, thank God. He reached the iron disc above him, the city's skin. He braced both palms against it, prayed it wasn't locked from above, and heaved. It shifted. Rain lashed his face. Night air, fresh, brutal, beautiful. He sucked it down like wine. He rolled out onto wet cobblestones behind a row of shuttered shops. No sirens here yet. No soldiers. Only Paris breathing, unknowing, above its oldest runaway. Marcel pressed his forehead to the cold street, eyes leaking salt into the rain. I'm still alive. Then he forced himself up, limping into the shadows before the city could change its mind. Rain washed the stink of the sewers from his hair, but not the memory. Marcel pressed himself into the shadows behind a row of trash bins, breath ragged, ears tuned to every footstep beyond the alley mouth. Paris above was not the Paris he had known. It reeked of uniforms, ration bread, and curfew whispers. He tugged the filthy collar higher over his stubbled chin. A man smelling of shit and fear was the easiest man to catch. Keep moving, he ordered himself. One more corner. One more street. He drifted along back lanes like a ghost born of rain. Twice he ducked into doorways as patrols passed. Young Germans, boys pretending to be wolves, their boots too clean for real war. Montmartre. He felt the slope in his legs first, the hill that had always felt like coming home. He forced himself up street after street until a courtyard swallowed him. Cracked plaster walls. Weeds clawing through cobblestones. No lights in the windows. Good. Behind a broken gate, under a tangle of dead ivy, waited his oldest secret, the wine cellar. Once a hiding place for stolen kisses with Sophie, before the resistance turned him into something else, something hunted. The old stones remembered him. He scraped the bricks aside, found the iron latch. Rust screeched. Cold air breathed out to meet him, damp, earthy, safe. He stumbled inside, let the door sigh shut behind him. Darkness pressed close. His lantern was long dead, but he didn't care. He could smell the musty barrels, the cobwebs, the whisper of a memory, Sophie laughing. Swearing he'd never get her drunk enough to dance barefoot. He sank to his knees on the dirt floor. His chest cracked open, silent sobs, no tears left. He was alive. Alive because pipes and tunnels had loved him back. Tomorrow he would have to move again. Drancy, the east, all still hunting him. But tonight the city above would sleep. And so would Marcel Lefevre, Paris' drowned rat, clutching one last dream in the dark. I will find you, Sophie. And Claire. I swear. And for a few stolen hours beneath the Nazi night he did not run. He dreamed. Marcel woke in pitch black, sweat dried to salt on his neck. For a heartbeat he thought he was back in the cell, the damp walls, the rank air. But then the hush of the cellar spoke, you are free. For now. He sat up, bones stiff, mouth tasting of stale metal. His mind, sharper than it had any right to be, began stacking thoughts like bricks. Drancy. The East. Sophie. Claire. Paris was no longer home. Paris was a noose. Somewhere in the bowels of the night, a rat squeaked and scurried near the barrels. Marcel envied it. No papers, no patrols, no dogs sniffing the blood from his hands. He needed out. Out of the city. Out of Reich hands. Out of this walking grave. And he needed to circle back for Claire when he could breathe without chains rattling inside his lungs. He pressed his palm to the cold earth floor and whispered, one step at a time. At dawn, hunger forced him out of the cellar's cradle. Wrapped in a ragged coat left behind by some ghost tenant, he melted into Montmartre's awakening streets. No uniformed boys yet, only street cleaners and milk carts. Marcel limped like an old drunk. No one looked twice. At a backstreet cafe, he found Pierre's contact, a waiter with red knuckles and eyes too tired to care if your life story stank of sewers and Gestapo. I'm looking for the boatman, Marcel said into his chipped cup of ersatz coffee. The waiter raised one brow. Poured more black sludge. Too many eyes lately. If you want to cross, you need a better disguise. And money. Disguise I can steal. Money. Marcel's laugh sounded foreign to his own ears. How much? Enough to bribe the last 2 roadblocks. And for the boatman's silence. Silence costs more than bullets these days. Marcel pocketed the scrap of paper the man slid under his saucer. An address in St. Denis, near the canal where even the Germans hated to patrol at night. Tonight, then. One more crawl through the city's rotten veins. One more mask to wear. One more roll of the dice. He left the cafe with half the cup unpaid. No one dared shout after him. He was not the sort of ghost you asked for money. Under his collar, the plan whispered itself into flesh and bone. Find the boatman. Buy silence. Cross the line. Breathe. Then come back for Sophie and Claire. One step at a time. One tunnel at a time. One lie at a time. Night fell on St. Denis like a wet blanket thrown over a dying fire. Marcel moved through its industrial veins, every warehouse a shadow, every canal lock a rumor of escape. The paper from the cafe led him here, a dockside shack where the river stank of oil and old fish. No lanterns. No voices. Only the restless lap of black water against rotten planks. He paused by the shack's door, listening. A scrape of boot on wood. A cough that could have belonged to any old drunk, but drunks didn't wait up for men like him. Marcel rapped twice. Once more, slow. The door opened a crack. The boatman, Etienne, wide shoulders under a threadbare coat, a beard hiding half his face, squinted at him. Marcel Lefevre? Not a question. A password spoken like a confession. Marcel nodded once. Boat ready? Etienne snorted, spitting over the side of the dock. It floats. It leaks. Same as all of us. Got your payment? Marcel showed empty palms. Half now, half when I'm over. Etienne's eyes were gray as river mud. I know who hunts you. It'll cost double silence. Marcel's fingers twitched toward the knife tucked in his coat sleeve. Habit, not threat. He forced the tension down. Double then. His voice flat as the water. But you get me across tonight. Etienne's shoulders lifted. A boatman's shrug. Men drown every day. Men pay every day. Tonight, he agreed. The skiff bobbed behind the shack, tar-black hull, oars quiet as secrets. Etienne handed Marcel an old fisherman's cap and a stinking oilskin. Disguise enough if the patrol's lanterns swept too close. Keep your head down, Etienne muttered. I talk. You shut up. If they shout, you vomit like a drunk. Marcel managed half a laugh. Been practicing that part all week. His hands found the gunwale. Cold wood under his palms felt like hope dressed in splinters. Midstream, the river swallowed all city sounds. Marcel crouched low, knees slick with river sweat. Etienne rowed with slow pulls, eyes never leaving the dark water ahead. Far bank meant woods, woods meant tracks, tracks meant Jura Mountains, and beyond them, Switzerland. A safe haven. A promise made in the dark to Sophie, to Claire, to himself. Halfway across, a beam sliced the river, patrol boat. A shout. German voices barking, too near, too hungry for hero medals. Etienne hissed without turning. Now, drunk man. Be drunk or be dead. Marcel slumped against the prow. He let his chin loll, breath stinking of fear and lies. A voice roared across the water. Halt! Who is there? Etienne's oars dipped, lazy as sin. His accent thick with river rat scorn. Nobody worth shooting. My old man here, too much brandy, he pissed in the boat. Laughter. One German cursed the stink. Another ordered them ashore. Etienne drifted closer, curse after curse dripping from his mouth. Marcel dry heaved over the side, making the soldiers bark more laughter. Then Etienne swung the bow into shadow, a back eddy the patrol couldn't see. One more push. One more lie. One more heartbeat between freedom and the bullet waiting for his skull. The river spit them out on the far bank, wet stones, a black ribbon of mud winding toward the woods. Etienne hissed at Marcel to move. No time for thanks, no room for prayers. Marcel ran. Under the trees, wind clawed at his face. Branches snapped behind them. Maybe foxes, maybe dogs, maybe the Reich's last teeth still snapping at his heels. Etienne led him through the birch grove, boots sinking in old snow. They didn't speak. The cold did all the talking, breath turned to smoke, limbs to iron. They met the others in a hollow where pine roots clutched at the frost. A mother with 2 children, a British pilot with a broken arm, an old man too tired to stand. Freedom always looked like this, bruised, coughing, half dead, but alive. Etienne counted heads, then caught Marcel's sleeve. Beyond that ridge, Jura. Swiss patrols watched that side. Cross before dawn or not at all. Marcel's lips cracked in a smile that was more wolf than man. Thank you? Etienne grunted. Don't thank me yet. Go. They climbed. Step after step, snow crunching like dry bones underfoot. Marcel's lungs begged for mercy. His mind refused. Behind them, faint barks drifted up the slope, too close. The pilot slipped once, cursing the Reich, Churchill, and his own boots. Marcel hauled him up by the collar, didn't stop. They broke the tree line near dawn. A sky scraped raw with stars opened above them, and somewhere past the next rise, Switzerland breathed cold and clean. Marcel turned, panting, eyes on the dark woods below. Somewhere in there, Sophie's name still trembled on a Gestapo file. Claire's face still slept behind blackout curtains. One step at a time, Marcel told the wind. I'll come back. For her. For both of them. I will not die on my knees. He faced forward, a man-shaped scar trudging through the snow into a future that might finally belong to him. Spring clawed its way back into Paris like a wounded animal sniffing old wounds. Flags bloomed where bullet holes still whispered. Victory songs tangled with funeral drums. And Marcel Lefevre, ghost of sewers, scar of mountains, came home. He stepped off the transport truck in boots that weren't his, wearing a jacket stolen from a dead German near the Ardennes. In his pocket, orders from the New Republic, papers that called him Captain Lefevre. In his chest, the same broken promise he'd carried through tunnels and snow: find Sophie. Find Claire. It took weeks. Lists, rumors, empty barracks, Red Cross tents stuffed with women who no longer remembered their own names. Then one nurse in a white cap whispered, Ravensbrück, and Marcel nodded before he could breathe. The train to the camp felt longer than the entire war. He found her standing by a fence, sunlight in her brittle hair. She was thinner than the memory he kept under his ribs, but her eyes, God, those eyes, they flared wide when she saw the fool in a stolen coat limping toward her through mud and ash. Either of them spoke at first. Words were too small. So he just touched her cheek with a hand that had killed and bled and dug through filth for this moment. You came back, Sophie whispered. Her voice cracked like old ice. Marcel tried to laugh, but it caught in his throat. I told you. I promised. Claire was waiting in Montmartre, safe, taller now, serious in a way only war makes children. When she saw the scarecrow of a man beside her mother, she didn't run. She walked to him. Stood so close her breath touched his wrist. Are you my papa? She asked. Marcel dropped to his knees in the courtyard dust. He had nothing left in his pockets, no medals, no gold. Just a name, ragged from too many walls, too many lies. He offered it to her like treasure. Yes, my little Claire. I am. And no one will ever take me away again. Above them, the New France sang hymns to the living and the lost. Below them, the old Paris kept its secrets, pipes, tunnels, rusted grates. But Marcel was done crawling through its veins. He had 2 reasons now to stand tall. And both of them held his hands as if the world couldn't ever fall apart again. Beneath the heavy stone arches of Santé Prison in Nazi-occupied Paris, 1943, a clock was ticking, counting down the final hours of condemned resistance fighters. What can a man do when 3-meter walls, armed guards, and a merciless regime promise no escape? Engineer Pierre Lefevre found an answer where no one dared to look. Beneath their feet, deep inside the ancient veins of Paris, he knew better than his own pockets. Dive into this gripping tale of a desperate escape where each flooded tunnel, each echoing footstep could mean betrayal and death. What does a man feel leading his comrades through the black labyrinth, knowing a single mistake will doom them all? How do you choose between saving yourself or risking everything for the brothers you leave behind? In the damp darkness beneath Paris, this is more than a jailbreak. It's a raw drama about dignity and defiance no prison can crush. The catacombs become not just a route to freedom, but a symbol of the human spirit clawing toward light through the darkest night of occupation. Welcome to Survival Edge, where true courage meets impossible odds. Forests, mountains, open seas, deserts, isolation, and natural disasters, every story drags you into the razor's edge of life and death, where survival is never guaranteed and every mistake could be your last. All stories on this channel are fictional and created purely for entertainment. They are not based on true events and do not encourage illegal actions. Any similarities to real people or events are purely coincidental. These stories are not survival guides and should never be imitated. Every tale is my original work, crafted exclusively for this channel. No stolen plots. No recycled scripts. Only raw, gripping, one-of-a-kind survival stories. Subscribe if you crave edge-of-your-seat tension, psychological twists, and human battles against nature, or against themselves.
If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this one. Thank you for watching.